Bucknutters, welcome to the Bucknuts Morning 5 here on Wednesday, January 11th, 2017. I am Dave Biddle. Very happy to be joined by the people's champ, Matt Baxendell. And, Bax, it's great to see a plan come together perfectly, is it not? We have been talking, screaming from the mountaintops, really, that Ohio State needs to hire Kevin Wilson as its offensive coordinator, and after weeks of speculation, it was made official yesterday. I am thrilled about this. I know you are, too. To speak about Kevin Wilson coming on board here in Columbus.
Well, as the co-founders of the Kevin Wilson to Ohio State Band Club, that would be you and me. Literally the moment that at the Indiana press conference announcing his departure, where their AD said things like philosophical differences and no reason for, direct reason for departure. The second that I'm sitting there feeling pretty confident that there was no Tim Beckman type stuff here, I immediately said, bring him to Ohio State. You immediately said, bring him to Ohio State. And I assume at that point, Urban Meyer turned on his TV and went, what the hell did Indiana do? Okay, I'm bringing him to Ohio State. So this is exactly what we wanted. Kevin Wilson is as good of an offensive mind as there is in college football. I just want to tell people this. The last time Kevin Wilson was an offensive coordinator, take aside the Indiana offenses that were always way better than they should have been. The last time he was an offensive coordinator was at Oklahoma in 2008. And in 2008, his quarterback won the Heisman. Oklahoma averaged 51 points a game in an era where people weren't averaging crazy numbers. And they scored 99 touchdowns that season in 13 games. So that's pretty darn impressive if you ask me. So I'm of the opinion very strongly that you're going to see Kevin Wilson turn this Ohio State offense around virtually immediately. And we couldn't have had a better hire. This is a home run with the bases loaded.
And I think he's going to stay for a while. I mean, a minimum of 2 years, because I think even if they have a great year offensively, there's not going to be, an upper-tier Power 5 conference that's going to come after Kevin Wilson for its head coaching job. I don't think after 1 year, maybe after 2 years they would, but I think he needs a little time at Ohio State. I'm thrilled Ohio State's getting Schiano for a second year. I really thought he'd be one and done. I think Wilson will be here at least 2 years, maybe longer, and that's just great news.
Yeah, and the other thing is that, the further he gets away from this Indiana firing, /resignation, whatever you want to call it, the more likely people are to focus on what he's done as OSU's offensive coordinator, right? And let's say he comes to OSU and we win a title or two, which is completely plausible when you have that kind of defense to go with the Kevin Wilson offense. That's a fantastic thing. But I think the other thing for him is that if you're Kevin Wilson, the further you get away from Indiana tenure, the easier it is to spin it as, I was building one of the most dangerous programs in the Big Ten at a school that's never been dangerous at football ever before it was yanked away from me. And you have a couple years as a really strong coordinator at Ohio State, then you're going to be in a position to get a better job than Indiana in a few years. He's still fairly young, and I feel like this is an absolute home run on every level for OSU. And, hey, there's people listening right now who said, but what about the player, mistreatment concerns? Look, there's a few things about Kevin Wilson that I've always heard about him. One is that he is a hard-ass person who pushes his players very hard. But let's be honest, when Tim Beckman stuff came out, Illinois players left and right were saying, oh, man, he forced me back, this and right. All we're hearing now is somebody's brother whose cousin played for Indiana's kid may have played injured sooner than he wanted to or something like that. And honestly, that to me doesn't strike me as the kind of, playing concussion kid type thing that we don't want to see. In today's age in football, you simply cannot play kids who've had head injuries until they've been cleared, period. There's no evidence Kevin Wilson was doing any of that stuff, So if there was evidence of this, Ohio State's had a month and a half to vet him. I can guarantee you, at this point, it seems very obvious that Urban Meyer, when we were writing it and saying it, that this offensive staff needed overhauled as far back as October, Urban Meyer was probably in his office. He probably wasn't listening to the Bucknuts Morning 5 because he's a smart guy, but he was saying exactly what we were saying because his prescription was exactly the same prescription that we were talking about. So this is it feels like the Fiesta Bowl was a year ago. I just am ready for spring football because this Ohio State team next fall they're gonna have all the points because Kevin Wilson is going to fix this team almost immediately. The only thing that would prevent me from saying Ohio State will be the highest scoring team in the Big Ten and potentially in the country next year is that something like Jamarco Jones declaring early for the NFL draft. Please, Woody Hayes, don't let that happen.
And to your point about Kevin Wilson, what went down at Indiana, I mean, he had former players coming out and defending him after all that came down. You know, like you mentioned with Tim Beckman, former players were coming out and saying, yeah, he did this and this and this. At Indiana, you have former players coming out and say, no, Kevin Wilson was a great guy, would not be where I am today without him. Guys that are in the NFL, guys that are just in the private sector, whatever it might be, had droves of former Indiana players coming out and defending him. So that says a lot to me, and it says a lot to me that Urban Meyer wants him. Urban Meyer, I'm sure, knows exactly what went down in Indiana, and he would not hire anybody who was toxic. And, hey, I want to ask you about Ryan Day. I know that's been official for a while now, but I think that's another home run. Ryan Day coming in as quarterback's coach. You also have the title of co-offensive coordinator we learned yesterday. And for those that are wondering, that's just a title. He's not, I mean, Kevin Wilson's going to be running this offense, but I think Ryan Day coming in as quarterback's coach and maybe grooming him to be the offensive coordinator of the future if it works out that way, I think this is another home run hire, Bax.
Yeah, you're a little higher on him than I am just because he's so young. I think he has a ton of potential. I love the fact that he's worked under both Urban Meyer and Chip Kelly. The fact that he had a Heisman finalist on his offenses at Boston College was nice. He's a young guy who can certainly bring some NFL experience to the table. And I think you're right. I think he's a guy who Urban Meyer saw as a young man, recognized his work habits pretty quick, has seen do well in college. I don't think anybody can blame him for what happened with the 49ers this year. That place is a disaster. And, Chip Kelly never really had a shot. So I think Day is a very good hire. I'm interested to see back how he does, actually coaching on the field. Let's see how he does get back into recruiting at a big boy program. I'm sure he'll do very well. He just doesn't have the same track record, which is really hard to have when you're not even 40 years old in this profession. So, I think it's a very good hire. No question about it. And as for the I agree with you. This is Kevin Wilson's offense, all right? Just like whenever Greg Schiano came to Ohio State. Look, Luke Fickell, I'm sure, had an input in everything, but it was Greg Schiano's defense. It will be Greg Schiano's defense. Right now, Ohio State's coordinators are more qualified to be head coaches than the bottom half of the Big Ten's head coaches in this conference. It's unbelievably good. The real question I want to see now is how much are they paying Kevin Wilson? Is he our first $1 million coordinator?
I bet he is. I hope that, I think that'll come out pretty soon. I think my guess is he's going to be paid $1 million, not much more than that, right around $1 million, but that is my guess. And speaking of coaching changes, Ed Warinner is leaving Ohio State to go to Minnesota, and at first everybody's, he'll be offensive coordinator at Minnesota. Nope. Offensive line coach at Minnesota. I mean, it's too bad something couldn't get worked out where Ed would have stayed at Ohio State and just been offensive line coach. I think he's one of the best offensive line coaches in the country. He's not cut out to be an offensive coordinator at a top-tier program. But it looks like Ohio State's going to keep stud Greg Studrawa as the offensive line coach. Now Ed Warinner is off to Minnesota as O-line coach. Your thoughts on that, Bax?
Yeah, this isn't like Jim Bowman leaving where we were like, just get out of here. Ha, 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 somebody took him. I would have gladly kept Ed Warinner as the O-line coach. Anybody who wants to argue that, explain to me what happened in 2012 with the Ohio State O-line where they went from the worst O-line I've maybe ever seen to an offensive line that was one of the best, where he turned Reed Fragel from a tight end into an NFL draft pick at tackle in 1 year. Ed Warinner may not be the world's most fantastic fire-breathing recruiter, but he is an excellent O-line coach. And honestly, going to Minnesota, even P.J. Fleck, rowing the boat together, baby, at Minnesota, it's still a step back from being an offensive line coach at Ohio State. It's a lateral position move at a lesser school under a lesser coach. The only thing I can think of is that Warinner didn't agree with the assessment that the offense wasn't any good this year, and I think his pride was hurt. Otherwise, they would have had to have worked something out. Put Studrawa as reassigned or something till you get the 10th coach and kept Warinner on staff. And, I think this was just a situation where they decided that they had to move on. I think just maybe because Warinner was having trouble recognizing the fact that if he accepted demotion at Ohio State, he maybe never would be a head coach. And I think that is playing into this more than anything else is Warinner's self-perception of where he really stands as a coach. Some guys are meant to be awesome position coaches and nothing more. Ed Warinner really, really seems to fit that bill right now. And I think Minnesota's getting an excellent offensive line coach. He'll certainly recruit well for them. I mean, P.J. Fleck's Minnesota is not going to be the laughable, silly Gophers that we've seen in the past, or the coaches eat ice cream bars on the sideline and all have giant mustaches. But, I think it's just a shame that it worked out this way with Ed because for all his flaws, he's an excellent offensive line coach, and that's something Ohio State, I can't say for sure, has on staff right now.
Yeah, for those that are wondering, it's not like a situation where, to my knowledge, from my understanding, Urban Meyer did not come to Ed Warinner and say, hey, would you be okay with being demoted? I'm offering you the offensive line job. To my understanding, Ed was not offered, that job at all. It was just, something must have happened. And obviously that relationship soured because, to my understanding, there was just no job offer for Ed. He was basically told, find a new job because they're bringing in his replacement. So those that are wondering, well, why didn't he just stay at Ohio State? Well, he didn't even have that option, is what I'm being told. So, real quick on recruiting before we finish the show. Buckeyes got the number one JUCO cornerback in the country yesterday, Kendall Sheffield. Obviously, initially signed with Alabama, went to Alabama for 1 year, then was at Blinn Community College this past season. This is huge, especially when the Buckeyes, now Lattimore hasn't made it official yet, but I have to think Marshawn Lattimore is going to go pro. Buckeyes losing 3/4 of their starting secondary. Kendall Sheffield, I'm not saying for sure he's going to come in and start, but he's at least going to come in there and compete for a starting job. I think this is huge, Bax.
Yeah, that's a great get. That's a great get at a position where right now your second most experienced corner is Damon Arnett. And, no knock on Damon Arnett. But he's not like your 5-star blue-blooded guy who was working his way towards becoming a star this year or anything. I think Damon Arnett is going to be a serviceable guy for the Buckeyes for his career, but if you want him to be one of your starters, that's probably a concern. Denzel Ward's the guy who's got something to prove still, too, but he has a little bit more of a pedigree. But Sheffield, look, this is a guy in Sheffield who, there are people talking about how he could have played this year at Alabama had he stayed. And they had a very, very good secondary. And he would have been one of their top corners is kind of the general consensus had he stayed. So for Ohio State, you're getting a guy who, by the way, everybody's going to go, man, how do we do it compared to Bama? Are we doing something Bama isn't doing? And you got him for 3 years potentially. Then again, like we've seen with so many of these guys, if Sheffield comes to Ohio State, starts right away next year and has a knock him out kind of year, he may only be at Ohio State for 1 year because he's eligible after this year. So it's an awesome get for Ohio State in recruiting. It fits a need that they definitely need to fill for next season to be a contender. And, I think it's the kind of commitment that you're going to see frequently whenever Ohio State is a spot that they're a little concerned about. This is the second straight year we've taken a JUCO guy at a position of projected need. Look at Malcolm Pridgeon last year, one of the top JUCO players in the country. And everybody knew that the coaches were a little concerned about the tackle spot, and that's why Pridgeon came in. If he hadn't gotten hurt, knowing what we know this year about the way Isaiah Prince played, does anybody would tell me Malcolm Pridgeon wouldn't have started at some point? So I think you have to feel pretty good about Kendall Sheffield being a pretty big contributor in the early going this year.
So the Buckeyes got some good news yesterday on the recruiting front, some excellent news, really, and they got some bad news this morning. Tyjon Lindsay is decommitted from Ohio State. He has reopened his recruitment. I was surprised to see this. Your reaction when you heard about Lindsay, and what do you think will happen with Tyjon Lindsay?
Yeah, so the rumor going around is that Tyjon Lindsay doesn't think Ohio State is going to be able to showcase him enough or something. I think it's insane. Like, this may be somebody who watched OSU's offense this year projecting it as the same crap next year, when that's absolutely not going to be the case. If you are a squirrely little, speedy little guy, maybe you ought to look at what Kevin Wilson did at Indiana. Does the name Shane Wynn ring a bell? Shane Wynn's like 5'2", and he was out there as one of the top receivers in the country. Who was that little tiny guy they had this year? I think his last name is Peter or something. They had another little 5'6" guy who was their most dangerous receiver. You think Kevin Wilson wouldn't have found a lot of things for Tyjon Lindsay to do? To me, this is like, unless something else is going on that has nothing to do with football, this is mind-boggling that Tyjon Lindsay would have changed his commitment from Ohio State right after Ohio State gets the best possible offensive coordinator to showcase his particular skill set. So I don't know what's going on with this. I really don't. I'm virtually certain it's not an OSU needs numbers or anything kind of thing. And whatever's going on, we'll eventually figure out. But this seems like a very bad business decision for Tyjon Lindsay, to say the least.
And we'll see. Maybe he'll recommit to Ohio State. Although I think that the chances of those are slim to none. That just never happens. Right. It just does not happen, especially this late in the process. So I would give that less than a 1% chance, Lloyd Christmas. You're telling me there's a chance? Not really. Not really telling you there's a chance. So I agree with you. I think that ship has sailed on Tyjon Lindsay, and we will keep you updated all day on Bucknuts on what's going on with that situation and more. Thanks very much to Matt Baxendell, the People's Champ. You can catch his column every Sunday, The Bucket. It is must-read material each week. And thanks to all the listeners out there for tuning in to the show. I appreciate it, and I hope you all have a great day. Let's hear some Buckeye swag, best damn band in the land.